Welcome to this week's edition of Plank of the Week. It's been quite a week again. There's an awful lot of names. We've had to pare them all down just to get them down to the requisite 9 or 10 that we're going to put in the list this week. And I'm delighted to say that I'm joined once again by Laura Dodsworth, who's to my left, who's going to have some very unusual situations to suggest to us, and Kevin O'Sullivan to my right, who's been here, of course, many times before and knows the drill. We've got a slightly different look this week, but don't be alarmed. There's plenty of plankery to go along. And Laura, I should ask you to kick us off, please, with your first nominee.
Okay. All right. Well, I do have a couple of unusual ones in my mix. I know. Right. So I'm going to start off with the more highbrow one. I'm banging the COVID drum again, and
yes.
it's just one more time.
Just
right?
one more time. It's almost gone, isn't it? It's nearly gone.
It's almost gone, apart from the young people that the environmental modelling group want to mess with.
Yes.
So the reason that I've made them my plank is because they've basically openly acknowledged in black and white, pretty much for the first time, that vaccine passports are just a tool to make people get vaccinated.
No. Really?
Yes, they have. Well, it's down there in black and white
now.
So
you call them the environmental modelling group. Until now, I've never heard of them. So where do they hide? Where are they coming from?
So it's one of the subgroups that feeds into SAGE,
right,
which advises the government on COVID. And the thing about this report, it acknowledges that vaccines don't stop transmission because you get breakthrough infections. That it also says that they've got no evidence how much of the virus might be passed in the ambient air at festivals.
Oh, yeah.
But it would like vaccine passports to be considered for festivals because it will increase vaccine uptake among the youth who are complacent.
Right.
So they're basically saying introduce vaccine passports so that young people will get vaccinated before festivals. And I just think this is really coercive.
And it does work, because I know young people who have done exactly that because they think they're going to go to festivals in the summer. And so up until quite recently, they were all rushing off to get vaccinated.
But, these models, they're hopelessly inaccurate. And at one time when I was on Plank before, Mike, you might remember it was a while ago, but I nominated epidemiologists for Plank of the Week. And I do think that in the future, it will be a discredited science. You cannot approach a health crisis through the prism of algorithms. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. You can't predict what's going to happen. But except maybe
what
they
try
should
to
do.
though.
But what they should do now is look back at what did happen and then say, well, that's what happened last time. Maybe that will happen next time.
It's this kind of blind faith that everybody's developed over the past 3 or 4 years in algorithms. The algorithms are uncannily accurate. You must do what algorithms say. Well, they're not, as the epidemiologists have proved.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what's frustrating? Because if they'd actually look back at the past, at how things have worked out before, then they would know that coercion is not ultimately good for vaccine uptake.
No.
So trying to force young people to have a vaccine they don't want by restricting their access to festivals is going to end up backfiring.
But why are we trying to force people to have more vaccines now? Why are we still going on about boosters? We've now got Omicron, which makes you a bit ill for 2 days. Why do you need a vaccination against that?
I think it's part of this kind of scientific thinking that they know best.
Yes.
Well, but what they say is, well, then we might get another variant. Well, how do you know that the current vaccines will work on the next variant? You cannot vaccinate people on the off chance that the next variant comes along, it will be effective against. It's ludicrous. Why are they still telling people to get jabbed? The 6 million people who've decided against it never will. It's game over.
Yeah, exactly right.
Unless they're bringing vaccine passports for festivals. So
I don't think so. Not the 6
Well, maybe
million.
they
I know.
won't, maybe they won't go to
agree.
the festivals.
I
Maybe
quite
they won't
agree.
do it. Anyway.
I'm just trying to illustrate their thinking. And so that's why they're my plank, one of my planks, because I think it's technocratic, it's coercive, but, well, they've put down in black and white how they really think, and now we know. So that's interesting.
So that wasn't very good, so they've shot themselves in the foot. Who's your first one, Kevin?
Well, I've chosen Julian Smith. He's the Tory MP who was the former chief whip. He's been leading the charge against Boris Johnson for the Prime Minister's alleged disgraceful slur against Keir Starmer for his period in charge of the CPS when he was Director of Public Prosecutions. When Starmer was DPP, Jimmy Savile, the case arrived at the Crown Prosecution Service and the CPS decided not to prosecute. Now, you have to accept Keir's contention that he personally had nothing to do with that decision. But he was the head of the organisation when it happened. So to accuse him of failing to prosecute Jimmy Savile is not an outrageous lie. It has veracity. So whilst I absolutely agree Boris should not have done that, I thought it was...
I don't agree. I think he should have done.
Well, I think it was bitter, spiteful, random and unnecessary.
Not like most politics, though.
But don't call it fake news. Don't call it fake news. It has complete veracity, and I cannot understand why all these politicians, led by Julian Smith, Lindsay Hoyle's on the act, loads of Tory
David
MPs...
Lammy.
He would be,
well, then,
wouldn't he?
of course, they also then blamed Boris Johnson for the mob, so-called, that supposedly attacked Keir Starmer outside New Scotland Yard, which wasn't really a mob in the first place.
No, there's just something that's very vacuous and cheap about all of this. So Boris Johnson's comment is cheap. It's a cheap slur. I'd rather that...
Well, I don't think it's a slur, particularly. Why is it a slur?
Well, you're saying he shouldn't have said it, so therefore you must not think it was the
I
right
think
thing
it's
to do.
I think it's random and kind of irrelevant to the debate.
Well, it kind of is a slur. I mean, I don't object to it being called a slur.
It's a slur because he's trying to put him down.
Yeah.
And I'd rather that's not how they did politics, but they do. But then what comes back in Boris Johnson's direction is another slur, which is that it's fake news.
It's not fake news.
And then there's another slur, which is that comment is responsible for a mob attacking Keir Starmer. The thing is, mobs will always dislike politicians.
And it wasn't really a mob either. And I mean, I keep going on about that, but it was a very small number of people. I don't know what constitutes a mob.
But Boris Johnson didn't incite violence when he said that. No. The only people responsible for what the mob did are the mob.
The mob.
So there's lots of slurs going around in different directions. Really, it's just a smokescreen for the lack
of
decent politics.
Yeah, it's absolutely right.
Cut and thrust of politics.
It is awful at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is.
Johnson's accused of stirring up conspiracy theories about paedophiles. I think that's a bit over the top.
Well, they're all doing that because they're trying desperately to link him. His enemies are desperately trying to link him to Donald Trump to try and make out, well, that's what happened over in America when all those people turned up, as I said, at that pizza restaurant because they thought that's where the child sex ring was being run from. And, of course, it was nothing of the kind. But it is kind of pathetic that this is the kind of supposed story that everybody's talking about in the Westminster Village. It's nonsense, isn't it?
And you know, just to stress my point, you know, if you want the fake news, it's the suggestion that what Boris said is fake news. I mean, he gilded the lily a bit, but that's the cut and thrust of politics. The point that he made has veracity and was valid, but I don't think he should have made it. But in and of itself, there was nothing wrong with it. And all these pompous MPs saying, you told lies, but rubbish, absolute rubbish. You're the one telling lies.
Yeah.
But it's also fake news then to say that that's what's responsible for people attacking Keir Starmer.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a bit like when David Amos's tragic death was linked to the problems of online anonymity. Nothing to do with it at all. No. It's about leveraging news to push a difference.
But this is the problem, that we now have a political class of people who will say literally anything to make their point, regardless of whether it's true, regardless of whether it's responsible, and regardless of whether it's even, you know, sort of provable. They'll say anything. And if they don't like you, they'll say even worse things. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, you're right. Labour have picked up on that. And a lot, it's interesting how many Tory MPs have climbed in on this wagon.
Well, Rishi Sunak said
Rishi Sunak said, I wouldn't have said it. And by the way, here's another guy who I almost would have nominated for Plank on the same basis. Sajid Javid, who outrageously said that Keir Starmer deserved, and I quote, absolute respect for the job he did as Director of Public Prosecutions. He deserves nothing of the sort.
No.
He was a disgrace.
Yeah, he wasn't very good at the job, that's for sure. I'm going to go with GoFundMe for my first nominee.
Nice
because GoFundMe is a big organisation around the world. I mean, I get sick to death when the London Marathon comes up because every single person you know, I've got a GoFundMe page. I'm like, great, I won't be giving you any money, because you're holding up the town and the city that I live in, and they go right past my door. If I actually don't park my car somewhere else, I can't get out when the marathon's on for like 12 hours. Because, you know, well, I mean, I could go out on a boat, I suppose, but you know what I mean? It's not something that I like to support. Anyway, but everybody's got a GoFundMe page.
Would you tell them, go fund yourself?
Go fund yourself, exactly right. And do it now. So the truckers over in America, the Freedom Truckers, the Freedom Convoy, raised an awful lot of money, $9 million they raised. I'm not sure if that's Canadian or US, but, you know, it's been quite a phenomenon, hasn't it, the old Canada trucker story. And lots of people haven't paid any attention to it. Some have. It's become a bit of a sort of darling cause, I suppose, of the right, you would say. And the left all hate it. Justin Trudeau was Plank of the Week last week for basically going and hiding away from them after saying that they were only a fringe extremist group of a few people. Yeah. And it's like 100 kilometres long.
I'm surprised he didn't disguise himself with blackface.
Well, somebody did suggest that he might have done that, and I called him the hide and seek champion of the world, but I don't know whether he's come out of hiding. Anyway, but they raised £9 million. Trudeau goes to GoFundMe and says you can't give them the money. because apparently they're now linked to some kind of violent act. Because when originally the money was collected, they were thought to be just doing something good. Now, because Trudeau has told them, and because the police have said that they're trying to commit violent acts, they're apparently now an outlawed group, according to Trudeau. So he orders them to give the money to somebody else. And like idiots, the GoFundMe people went, oh, okay then. So we've collected all this money from people who want to fund the truckers, but we can't give it to them, so we'll just give it to some other charity that you didn't actually give them the money to give away for. So finally, luckily, sense was seen, and somebody actually pointed out, I think Ted Cruz got involved in it, somebody actually pointed out that it wasn't legal
to hand it to
somebody else, because you're basically collecting money under false pretenses. It's like, you've decided to give your money to the Macmillan Cancer Foundation, and they say, oh, never mind that, we're going to give it to Team GB for the Winter Olympics. So they're now apparently going to repay everybody. However, you have to actually apply for a refund over the course of the next 2 weeks. So it's a really shabby way to operate, it seems to me. And some people have accused them of actually theft because they've taken money under false pretenses. It's rotten.
This is another example of it. So every single person in that demonstration, in that rather impressive demonstration,
yes,
where self narcissists like Pierre Trudeau, it's happening in New Zealand to Jacinda Ardern, suddenly realise, oh, everybody doesn't love me. I thought they did. Everybody in that demonstration, in that impressive demonstration, is being branded as a anti-vaxxer.
Yeah.
There was anti-vaxxers.
Which they're clearly not.
They're not all anti-vaxxers.
White supremicists.
Yeah, they're not all
racist,
anti-vaxxers.
misogynists.
Yeah. Essentially, that demonstration
all of ists going around.
is against the draconian, useless COVID restrictions to our freedom. That's what it's about.
Yeah. But you know what this has shown? Trudeau, GoFundMe, it's shown that a lot of so-called liberals are really nasty authoritarians. There's a really nasty streak of punishment there. I mean, the fact is people really cared. That trucker convoy has been like a beacon across the world. It's been really heartening. Really inspiring. And people wanted to give their money to them and say, no, you can't have your pocket money this week. Naughty children.
That's a lot
and
it's
a lot more. The thing is, it's a lot more naughty children than Trudeau was thinking. And this isn't something he can squash. And he's just making himself look worse. I mean, I now feel really cynical about GoFundMe. I've got a really bad feeling about the organisation.
I now would not use them.
No. So they've really tarnished their brand because those of us who genuinely are liberal at heart don't respect that kind of action at all.
Have you seen
it's the same for Australia. They've now said that we're opening our borders. Well, guess what? Nobody wants to come. Thanks.
I know I don't want to go to Australia
I really
anymore.
don't. And I feel bad about it in a way because I've always wanted to go to Australia, but I don't think I'll ever go now.
There's quite a few countries feel cut off, actually.
Petty has now taken out an injunction to stop the lorries honking their horns. How pathetic
Has he really?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
How
funny.
pathetic is that?
Tonya was here last week and she was saying that, when Trudeau came in, he was darling of an awful lot of women who thought, oh, look, he's a really young guy, he's handsome, he's cute, he's got the right ideas. I mean, he's turned into a right wally.
I know.
I'm afraid,
He's made being
word.
a handsome...
I think he always was a right
Well,
wally.
probably, but,
He's made being a handsome liberal incribly unsexy.
Well, exactly right.
He's not delivered on his initial promise at all.
No,
He's pretty short, so he's not all that handsome.
No, he's not. I like those great viral videos of him trying to shake hands with people and they just turn their back and walk the other way. It's fantastic.
You may feel stronger about this Trudeau thing than me.
Well, listen, because we don't like anybody handsome trying to take women away from those of us who aren't quite so handsome, but that's another story altogether. Who's your second nominee?
Okay, my second one, it's another weird one. It's not a person. We're doing a lot of groups.
Yes, that's
okay,
right.
It's Ben and Jerry's.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
So I'm going to have to put my glasses on for the quote here because I don't want to misquote them. So their slogan, by the way, is peace, love and ice cream. So I think you can see where I'm going to go with this. So they tweeted something this week.
I think it was understanding.
You cannot simultaneously prevent and prepare for war. We call on President Biden to de-escalate tensions and work for peace rather than prepare for war. So this is the latest in a long line of social justice interventions from Ben and Jerry's. Now, I have to be careful about this because I firmly believe in their freedom of speech and I firmly believe as a company that they've got every right to speak out for any political or social justice matter they want.
As planks, though.
It doesn't mean they can avoid being named as planks. Because, I've had the same kind of thing. People have said, why are you talking about politics when you used to photograph, let's say, X, Y and Z?
Yes.
And
but apparently you can't do both, can you? Is that the thing?
Well, apparently you should just stick to one or the other. I think they should be allowed to make ice cream and express political opinions.
Yes.
the reason I'm nominating them as planks is I just feel like they're ruining ice cream. They're really putting me off their ice cream because they don't stop talking about social justice
They've
issues.
done it before, haven't they, as well, Ben and Jerry's? Because did they not issue something, was it last year or the year before, about the dinghy, the crossings?
No, it's every other tweet, honestly.
Oh, is it?
It's non-stop.
Really?
Their latest brand, their latest flavour is Change something or other, and it's about black empowerment. They tweeted this recently: youth empower mint in every scoop. It's non-stop.
It's pathetic, isn't it?
Didn't they get bought by Unilever?
They are owned by
who have a
Unilever,
slightly dubious background.
Well, not only did Unilever have it's not so much a dubious background, but certainly they've had some scandals of their own. And they also produce things like skin whitening products for parts of the Indian subcontinent and Africa. And also Ben & Jerry's, I think themselves, originated in Vermont, which is that very weird sort of rural state of northeast New England.
Nice.
Very nice, but a bit odd. And Bernie Sanders came from there.
Oh, well, that.
So that tells you
Your
everything
case
you need to
rests.
know. Exactly right. Apparently they were using, like slave labour effectively, because they were using migrant workers who had come into the country from elsewhere, paying them beneath the minimum wage to work in their factory. So you're going, so it's all very well for you to promote peace, love and understanding, but you don't actually pay the people the amount of money you're supposed to. So well done, Ben and Jerry's.
Well, no one's got a perfect past. And,
No.
And that's okay. And like I said, I really don't mind them talking about social justice. I just think there's something really odd about the makers of fish food ice cream lecturing us about the Ukraine.
Yes.
And I don't really know how they think it's going to help their sales. I can't imagine this is flavour of the month with Unilever since they've been acquired.
Well,
Also, Joe Biden, for all of his faults, is not actually the one causing the problems in Ukraine. It's actually Vladimir Putin. Why haven't they had a go at him?
But all this ethical retail is one of the most cynical aspects of modern life. So you've got Ben and Jerry's. What they think it promotes sales, and maybe it does. Do you know about these chocolate bars, Tony's Chocolonely?
Oh, yeah.
They have
been on Plank of the Week.
they have sort of slavery is hell and all this kind of stuff.
And also you can break it up in a way which apparently all the sizes are different because it shows that
got all these slogans.
different
and
people have different sized chocolate.
Anti-slavery messages, and of course people are buying it because they think it's good. It's just been revealed
What's wrong with them?
that because they look into these things, that over the past year, 1,700 child labourers were used in the production of their chocolate.
It's always the way,
and they said this proves that our vigilance in checking for this is working. Guess how many child labourers were used the previous year, 2021?
Fewer.
323.
Oh my goodness.
So they've gone up to 1,700.
I mean, it really is incredible.
So they don't give a damn.
But you
They're
would
just
think-
trying to make money
You would
and
think,
get suckers
would
to
you
buy
not,
their
that
products.
somebody in the boardroom would go, are you sure we haven't got any of these slave labour kind of problems before we start promoting why we're against slave labour?
If it's chocolate and you're going to end up in a cocoa plantation, you're asking for trouble.
Yeah, exactly right.
The thing is, most people do want to consume from ethical businesses, right?
I don't care.
But I don't want label. I don't want labels all over it. I mean, I find that really off-putting with my chocolate.
Yes.
Besides which, I like my chocolate squares all exactly the same
Yes.
size.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Actually,
Is that just me?
Tony's
I don't know
chocolate
size chunks.
is annoyingly nice.
Yeah. I mean, I'm told it's very good chocolate.
It is good chocolate.
But until it was actually Emma Webb, I think, who was here a few weeks ago to put exactly that story on the Plank of the Week show. And I'd never heard of it before. But she does say it's very good chocolate. She said she'd like to boycott it, but it tastes too good.
Yeah, it does.
So social justice food's a theme. It's a Plank's theme.
It certainly
we don't want to
seems
be lectured to by our favourite yummy brands.
Also because it's BS. It's just cynical sales techniques. That's all.
Yeah, but the wokeists are all falling for it.
Yeah, of course they do,
Idiots.
because they're idiots.
Idiots.
Are they? Do you think it really is good for sales?
Yeah.
Well, I think these companies
They don't do it for nothing.
I mean, Ben and
they
Jerry's.
don't do it to make the world a better place. They do it to make money.
Right. Exactly right. Who's your second one? Is it a food stuff?
No, it's Bristol University.
Ah, yes. Excellent. Bristol, the
which is
wokest city in Britain.
Part of the Russell Group, so it is one of our best leading universities.
And they all seem to be in that. don't
And
they?
it has, the Russell Group is how you define the top ones. It's universities like Chester and Peterborough. They're not in the Russell
Are they not
Group.
in it? Oh,
No.
dear.
Is there one in Peterborough? Probably.
There might be.
Anyway,
Peterborough School of Science and Technology.
yeah, Bristol University has issued important instructions and guidance to its staff on how to address students who are cat gender.
What?
And that is students who identify as felines. They do identify as
God.
And the importance of this is listed. It refers to xenic individuals who do not fit into the Western human binary or gender alignments.
It's a new one even on me.
The university describes a cat gender person as someone who strongly identifies with cats and may experience delusions relating to being a cat or other feline. For example, someone who is cat gender may use nyan pronouns. Apparently, nyan.
No.
It's not April 1st, is it? Come on.
Nyan is Japanese for meow.
Why are they Japanese cats?
Is this a Japanese
No,
thing?
because that's what cat gender people, they borrow from the Chinese word for meow, and so therefore
Isn't that like
he
cultural
or she, you call them.
I was going to say that's cultural
Misappropriation.
misappropriation, but perhaps it doesn't matter if you're a cat.
If you're a cat, doesn't matter. I suppose
I know.
a Persian cat.
I
That
mean-
would be also difficult.
But I mean, seriously, what on earth are they thinking? How many cat gender students must there be at Bristol?
I mean, you'd
if
have to
there's
ask-
one, I'll be surprised.
Well, it's
Are
are there
you
any?
sure that, do you know what? Maybe this is like a social science experiment, okay?
Right.
Maybe the university's actually put this out as a social science experiment, see who falls for it.
Yeah.
Maybe
I'm not going to
what have you
fall
said?
for
Have you
this.
been reading up about Bristol University?
No, but I'm not going to fall for this. I
Bristol
can't
is
believe it's true.
Most certainly the wokest place in Britain, isn't it? Because they had the statue tearing down the Colston Fall.
Mm.
They've got this crazy mayor there who basically wants to completely ban all diesel from the entire city centre, despite the fact that the city council just bought a lot of diesel vans. They're not quite sure what to do with that. And they're always fighting the police, aren't
Yeah,
they?
you need to read up about Bristol
what do you
University
know-
before you dismiss this as
Well,
fake news. This is true.
But, you know, I want it to be fake news.
It is-
I'm
she's
sure it's
dismissing
not.
it. I don't think she's dismissing it.
Well,
No,
you're
no,
saying you're
I'm-
not falling for it, but is that,
No, because I don't
why do
want
you
it
think
to
they're
be
doing
true.
it cleverly? Have you
Yeah.
seen the other rubbish
What about
they come out
dog
with?
gender? Is there any of
Yeah,
those?
well, exactly.
Do you-
It's anti-dog.
Do you remember the case of Rachel Dolezal, who said that she was black but wasn't?
Yes.
Okay.
I do remember that.
So I remember at the time people were really offended, saying you can't identify as a different race, and other people would say, well, you can identify as a different gender.
Yeah.
Why can't you identify as a different race? And I actually remember thinking
Yeah.
at the time, it's not really long before people
Well, it's not-
identify as animals.
It's not illogical,
What-
is it?
Where does
If
it
you're going
go?
to accept one, you have to accept them all, don't you? Kind of. I mean, that's where the slippery slope begins, isn't it? If you say, well, I can tell you what gender I am, even though apparently that's not what gender you think I am, then I could be anything, can't I?
Well, I think there
I
should be
can
no...
identify
So
as
it's called Xenic, Xenic. These are individuals who do not fit
Xenic.
into, and I quote, the Western human binary of gender alignment.
What's it got to do with Western? I mean,
Yeah, particularly since they've nicked meow
nicked
from
it
Japan.
I mean, that's not Western, is it? Or is Japan considered Western? Even though it's in the Far East?
No,
Surely
it's
not.
not considered
No.
Western.
It's in the Far
It's
East.
inscrutable.
Although you can't say the Far East anymore, can you? Can you say the Far East?
Yeah, I think you can say the
Sure.
Far East. Yeah.
I think there should be no compulsion to use pronouns that don't make sense to you. I just don't think that's right, especially when it comes to calling somebody cat pronouns. This is madness.
It really is. I mean, you'd think they could figure it out the interview process. You know, what do you identify as? You know, so that we can put you in the right hall of residence.
And why specifically cats?
Or would you just like a cat flap
What,
instead of a
doesn't
door?
say. It's probably the last special category they've got left. They've done
Look at
everything
your
else.
claws.
Category. I like
Category,
it.
very
Yeah.
good. See what you
Category.
did there. Funnily enough, there's going to be another cat mentioned on the show.
Yes, there is.
later
There
on,
certainly
which is the
is.
cat
It's-
that's
it's a
dominated
cat
very much.
special
So
today.
very much of a cat special.
But you know, this madness has to stop. And I'll tell you, talking about pronouns, the one thing I won't do, I call people what they want, as long as it makes them
Usually
happy.
it's rude
But
when you call
I draw
people.
the line at calling a single person them. That's a plural
Or they.
term. Or they. I'm
Yeah.
not calling a single entity by a plural. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ungrammatical.
That's bad
Sam
news
Smith
for
is
Sam
that
Smith.
demands to
He
be
wants to
called
be-
they.
Do you know
and them.
nobody talks about him anymore?
Yeah.
That's what's happened to him.
It's quite...
And nobody talks about them anymore. See what I mean?
Him. Yeah.
If you said about nobody talks about them anymore. It doesn't
Nobody
make
talks about
sense,
them
does it?
anymore.
You-
Actually,
it's very demanding, isn't it?
it's ungrammatical.
very-
well, this is the
It's
problem.
not English.
But this is the problem with a lot of this, corrective language. Is it's not actually accurate.
Yeah.
It doesn't describe what you're describing.
It's semi-literate.
There's a reason
It's
why
semi-literate.
language, evolved to the place where it is now. It's in the same way that we've evolved. We don't live in caves anymore. We live in houses, generally speaking.
Wow. Language is becoming so meaningless that we might as well all walk around
Just
making
make up your own.
cat noises as
Well,
though we
make up your
identify
own
as
words.
cats, because it just becomes meaningless.
Also, just make up your own words, and describe things in any way you like. and then nobody will understand a word you say.
Like Zenick. Well done for knowing how to even pronounce that. I mean, goodness.
Yeah,
some of the pronouns, you don't know how to pronounce them, do you?
Yeah, and what we need is, if we must have a pronouns business, then we need better educated people to get hold of it, because right now semi-literate idiots have got hold of it, and they're telling us to call Sam Smith they and them. No, I'm not doing it. It's not grammatical.
Call him Zenick.
Zenick.
Maybe that's another one. I'm going to go with, you were talking about the woman who I identified as black. I'm going to go with Tandy Newton. Who's an actress, of course, who I'm pretty sure was she not in a Bond film at some point, rather?
She was.
In her past,
yeah.
And she seemed to be quite happy with all of it. Anyway, she's become extremely woke. She put out a video this week in which she basically was bursting into tears and very, 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 very sorry about the fact that she didn't look black enough. And that she was taking work away from people who looked blacker than her. Yeah. And that, in fact, it wasn't really her fault. She didn't mean to do it. And she said, going on about her mama, she said, my mama looks like you, but I don't, which can only presumably mean that maybe her parents were, she's mixed race, effectively, which is, completely and utterly a normal situation for anyone to be in. But she was apologising for taking work away from black actresses because she was only slightly black. Also apologising. It's bad, isn't it? She apologised for taking men away from them as well, because apparently she's presumably too beautiful, I suppose. I mean, I didn't actually say that, but that was the undercurrent.
It's hard being
I've just taken them all from you. And I didn't mean to do it, was her final kind of sign-off. And just
sobbing away.
And she burst into tears like twice, and then she'd do this kind of... And you kind of going, come on, dear. I mean, I know you're an actress and everything, but I mean, give it a rest.
What's it going to be like for her when something genuinely upsetting happens to her?
Well, I mean, you just can't make this stuff up, can you?
I missed the bit about her taking men away from other women because I couldn't watch that far. So I started watching it. It was going around on social media, wasn't it? But I was cringing so much. I was like shrinking into myself on the seat and beginning. I was like, I kept thinking also
it's embarrassing. That the screen had frozen because there's these sort of periods of silence, but because she's pausing for dramatic effect and kind of going...
You see, the problem is Newton lacks gravity.
There you go. You see, this is why we get him on.
Oh, very good.
She's only just got that. I mean, there's a bit of a delay, a 14-second delay going on. Well done. Yes, that's very good. Very clever.
Very good.
Now, before we go on, I'm just going to mention we always carry one over as well. And I think this week it has to be... Bizarrely, Boris Johnson's not appearing at all this week. I thought about carrying him over, but I'm actually going to carry over Cressida Dick.
Always good. I'm with you all the way.
She was in it last week, obviously, for the screw-up over the police investigation into Downing Street. This week, I think we'll put her in, obviously, for the amazing technique used by one of her top police officers who, when interviewing the daughter of Des O'Connor, decided to chat her up and described her as hot, asked if she ever fancied going out with a discreet police officer. He was the man. And this guy became like sort of practically second in command at Scotland Yard, didn't he?
No, he's still in his job.
He was disciplined, right? But he's still in his job.
He's a detective chief superintendent.
Yeah, he's pretty high up. He's pretty high up in the force.
Yeah, but the point is, he should have lost his job.
Well, yeah.
But she's very loyal to her fellow coppers. She doesn't care so much about the public.
No, but every time something comes up like this, people say, well, it was a while ago and, she's cleaning up the police force. Apparently she's not. I mean, you saw that stuff from Charing Cross as well, which came in, I think, after last week's planks, where they're all making these little jokes about raping women. And, I mean,
so awful.
You just go, what the hell is going on? And how can you even let that go on? And people sort of say, it's just banter. Well, it's not just banter, is it? It's ridiculous.
She's taken over from that other useless Met chief, Sir Bernard Hogan-Howe, Lord Hogan-Howe. And none of these people, the cops mark their own homework and never punish each other. Yeah. So Hogan-Howe was in charge of the disastrous Operation Midland, the VIP pedo ring.
She was involved in that as well.
She was involved in that as well. A guy called Steve Rodhouse, who was actually the gold commander of Operation Midland, having been completely vilified for his role in this absolute fiasco, went on to become commander of the anti-terrorist squad for £280,000 a year.
It's amazing, isn't it?
She went on to become the Met chief, and Hogan Howe went on to become a lord, and now he's bidding to get back into the police as head of the National Crime Agency. It's absolutely
There's definitely something
disgraceful.
There's something rotten.
There's something rotten in this country.
Well, they mark their own homework and never punish each other. We should be marking their homework and punishing them.
But it's not the only place, is it? I mean, almost every kind of public institution in this country, if you get something really, really badly wrong, you get promoted. I mean, it's unbelievable.
It should be like America. We should vote for our police chiefs.
Yeah, well, I don't know if that would be any better, to be honest.
Well, at least we could then depose them. At least they would worry about the public because they have an election to fight coming up.
Yeah, maybe.
Whereas, with Partygate being investigated, all the wrong people are marking each other's homework.
Favour to Boris.
And wasn't it great when they came out and said, oh, by the way, if we do give any penalty notices out, we won't be telling you who we've given them to.
Yeah, well, that's actually against the law of the land. If we want to find them out,
but the law of the land is also superseded by public interest, surely.
No, but the media have a right to know anyone who's prosecuted for any offence, even if it's a minor offence, a non-criminal offence. So she said, all she says is it's not normal practice to release the names of people who are convicted of minor misdemeanours. That doesn't mean to say that the media don't have the right to those names, and at least one publication will demand them because they may include Boris Johnson.
Well, he's already now said that he'd voluntarily give his name.
But he's a liar, so he probably won't.
Your third one, Laura.
My third one, I'm really sad about my third one.
Are you?
I am. I'm actually really sad. This guy really surprised me this week. It is John Cleese. He said, I'm beginning to think that wearing a mask is a sign of good manners, which is why Trump Republicans are so keen to resist it. This is everything that is wrong with the hyper-partisan approach to COVID. So Trump bad, so anything Trump says is bad.
Right.
And this has been the problem with COVID, that people have assumed that we should have a political response to a virus.
Right.
We should never have had a political response to a virus. The other thing is that wearing a mask can't be a sign of good manners if a mask doesn't do anything. And you know what? If there was hard evidence that masks stopped transmission, we'd be being told about the hard evidence, not that it's courteous to wear masks.
Well, look at all the different reasons for wearing one, which have changed categorically over the course of the 2 years that we were supposedly in this pandemic. Because I'm now actually saying that we're no longer really in it. Sue me if I get it wrong. But I mean, it's like we're kind of moving out of it now. But they went from don't bother wearing it because it doesn't do any good, to wear it because it might protect the people in the shop that you're in, to, wear it now because it might protect you from other people, then to back again to wearing it to protect everybody else, and then now just to make it look as if you still know there's a virus.
Okay, but there's no official backtracking yet in this country on the masks. But in the US, the CDC have said, cloth masks don't really work. Dr. Leanna Rain, who's one of the CNN medical talking heads, said cloth masks are basically facial decoration. She called them decoration. There's no hard evidence that cloth masks or even surgical masks help in the community to prevent transmission. So if I wear one, there's nothing that's mannered about it. And actually, as a woman, there's something something about this I find a little bit offensive. Get me being offended as a woman.
Yeah.
You guys are going to love this.
Why?
No, well, you won't, because I shouldn't be being offended, should I? But I wouldn't go to a country where I have to cover my face out of manners. You wouldn't catch me going somewhere where I have to wear a burqa.
So if you went to Saudi Arabia and they asked you to cover your head...
You don't have to, actually, when you're visiting Saudi Arabia. No, you'll see a lot of our female politicians don't. But I wouldn't cover myself out of manners, and I don't see why I should cover my face out of manners, unless there's a really hard scientific reason for it. And it's proportionate.
Yeah.
And since there's no good hard evidence and it's not proportionate, it's not good manners. Right. And I'm beginning to get a bit fed up with announcements on the train saying, out of courtesy, please wear a mask. Or you go into a shop, out of courtesy, please wear a mask. Why is it courteous? If they don't work.
Exactly.
I don't want to cover my face for any religious reason, be it Islam or COVID.
But don't tell you out of courtesy on the tubes. They say if you don't wear one, you might get kicked off. Because
which they can't do.
Even Sadiq Khan, well, I think they can kick you off, but Sadiq Khan has had to accept that he can't actually find people anymore.
Yeah, but
you're right. There's the thing about cloth face masks is there's not a shred of evidence to suggest they work. No one's bothered to look into that. I mean, if they did, they came back with evidence that they worked, then I would rethink the way I approach masks. But they haven't. So therefore, why are we wearing them?
Exactly. Now, there are certain people who would adopt this position and go, well, that's just what you'd expect. But for John Cleese this week, I was really disappointed.
But he has become a rather cantankerous old git, I have to say. I mean, without wishing to put too fine a point on it.
He's an enthusiast for hacked off, so he can do one.
Yeah, we're not keen on people.
He's an enemy of the press.
He is an enemy of the
Oh,
press.
is he really?
He does, yeah, he's a
So I
member
shouldn't be surprised.
No.
Am I hanging on to faulty towers,
I think
John
you are.
Cleese?
I think you're hanging on to
Am I?
faulty towers, John Cleese.
Yeah, you've got the old John Cleese.
I've got the old John Cleese.
I agree with you. I used to love him, but
In that
he's
case-
turned a bit strange.
He has turned very strange in his old age, and I think a lot of it is down to the fact that he's been very unhappy by marrying all sorts of people that he shouldn't have married. And having to give an awful lot of money away.
We're reading a lot of history into his comments about masks. You know what? He might just be one of these people who's really frightened of the virus and is just hoping anything works.
you know
He's that
something?
tall, though. Nobody's ever going to breathe on him. I mean, he's fine.
But you know something? You know, I'm almost prepared to
Science.
sort of buy into the idea that it's a matter of courtesy and it's polite. You know, because there are loads of people who look at you if you don't wear a mask. Oh my God, you might infect me. So you think, for the sake of them, maybe I'll put the damn thing on.
No, that's not politeness.
My
That's
point
not
is,
wanting to feel embarrassed or shamed, isn't it?
Well, that's my point is, you know, and I've got a certain kind of inclination not to upset people in that way.
What?
But think about it.
news to
Think
me.
about what a warped...
Kevin O'Sullivan doesn't want to upset anyone.
Well,
there you go. Mark that one down.
But I am quite polite in those kind of circumstances. But think about what a warped world we've created, that you've got to put a piece of cloth across your face or you're being rude.
Right.
That's what's so strange.
I mean, it's not
about
like
this.
holding the
What
door
are
for
they
somebody, is it?
for?
I am beginning to think that every article of religious garb, you know, every vestiture of faith has started with a moment of madness. Because the thing is that the mask was introduced to encourage the bounce back on the high street. It also became a useful symbol that we're in a
Well, that's
pandemic.
where we're at
People
now.
used it.
But now it's a different sort of symbol.
It's
It's
a
a symbol of virtue
Yeah,
and
isn't it?
morality.
Yeah.
But
Good
used
people
it,
wear
didn't they?
masks.
Yes, and people used it to keep the schools open. Do you remember? They said, oh, well, we can't possibly open the schools unless everybody's wearing a mask. Why?
I mean,
You know.
and these. So if you look at the House of Commons, all on the Labour side, they've all got masks on. Very few Tories have, and to hell with the Tories who still wear them. Theresa May the other week, when she got up to make that excoriating speech about Boris Johnson, you know, was it incompetence or are you lying? Do you remember?
Yeah.
Anyway, so she's sitting there, you know, as always, immaculately dressed with a matching mask. And then she stands up to make the speech, takes the mask off, makes the speech, and then as she sits down, puts it back on.
Yeah.
So you can't get COVID when you're standing up. It's insanity.
It's totally mad.
It's insanity.
Same on the train. You know, if you're travelling on an overground train, you're allowed to take your mask off to eat.
Right.
And
So-
you go... I mean, Noel Gallagher was great.
I'm
on it.
eating COVID.
He
you
went
can't get
literally, you know, he said, so what, you can't get COVID when you're eating a
COVID.
sandwich?
It's mad.
It's ridiculous.
So the idea it's about manners I find really offensive and
Yeah.
annoying. So with no regrets at all, I'll offer up John Cleese
I
as
think
my
that's
bank.
a perfectly sensible nomination. Your third one, Kevin?
Well, I suffered the easy one of the day. Thank you very much for letting
Not
me
at all.
have him.
Cats.
It's another cat story, and it's the West Ham defender, Kurt Zouma, also a French international.
He is for the moment, anyway.
He
Let's
earns,
see if West Ham
he
do
earns
anything about that.
£120,000 a week, lives in a £2 million house in North London after West Ham just about beat Kidderminster in the FA Cup on Saturday, or was it Saturday? Saturday. He went home to his house, and they've got the family has 2 Bengal cats, and he kicked the hell out of one of them. Everybody will have seen the video now. He drop kicked it, booted it across the kids. When his little kid got hold of the cat in some kind of protective gesture, he smashed it out of the kid's hands. It was absolutely,
laughing, aren't they?
and him and his brother,
his brother laughing.
shot the video. And what a genius couple they must be, these 2 Zouma brothers, to put it on Snapchat. Oh, this will make everyone laugh. He is now West Ham are playing Watford tonight. I'll be very surprised if he plays. I'll be very surprised if he plays for West Ham again. The RSPCA have been very slow, as always, dragging their heels as to whether to investigate this, but they will investigate it. And he faces potentially 5 years in jail for it. He may get a
But it's
custodian.
animal cruelty. There's
It's
no two ways about
absolutely
it.
outrageous animal cruelty. I don't think we handle animal cruelty correctly in this country. The police subcontract all animal cruelty criminal cases to the RSPCA. And as we've heard, they're not very vigilant. They drag their heels. They're very.
Well, their first reaction this morning was to say, "Oh, we'll certainly act on any reports of anything
We're so grateful
bad
when
happening."
people report incidents like this. We certainly will look into it and may well investigate. You'll be investigating.
If there are any complaints.
They had about 400,000 complaints by lunchtime. So I think we've got to look at that. And I don't know why we used to have a cap on sentences for animal cruelty of 6 months, which was ridiculous. A couple of years ago, we put it up to 5 years. But why the cap? Why? Why can you only get 5 years? Whatever you do to animals, you can only get 5 years, no more than that. We've got to change that.
What's the point of the cap anyway?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are examples of animal cruelty that deserve longer than that.
Well, exactly right. Because they do have sentencing guidelines. They could easily make it into something like that. Without having to put a cap
and that Zouma, West Ham, they said, we're going to handle this internally. No, you're not.
No.
And I suspect that he's a very good defender. He may well never play again. And lastly, since I'm nominating Zouma himself, you have to look into the personality of people who do things like this. What he did is psychopathic. Yeah. It shows a complete lack of empathy for your fellow living creatures.
For an innocent little creature.
He may well even be a dangerous individual.
And there's something also odd about knocking it out of his son's arms, doing it in front of his son. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that animal cruelty when you're not with children's okay. It's never okay. I don't understand where they dredge the cruelty up from. But for that to be a kind of a family activity is really weird. So he's a plank for doing it. Obviously, he's more than a plank.
Yeah.
It's psychopathic, like you say. But he's also a plank for putting it on social media.
I mean, it was his brother did that,
have they ever seen the animal reels on social media? They're cute. They're not beating animals up.
Couple of pop facts for you. His middle name is Happy.
Yes.
And he's named after...
Not now, he's not.
He's named after the character that Jean-Claude Van Damme played in the 1989 film Kickboxer, Kurt Sloan. So he's kept to his kickboxing history.
He has.
Obviously, it's a big influence on his life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, the RSPCA, in my view, should get round that house very, very quickly. They've got 2 Bengal cats. Bengal cats, by the way, are a very expensive status symbol. Yeah. Typical footballer. They should get round there and seize both those cats for their own welfare.
Yeah, and maybe they should seize him while they're at it. We'll find out how that goes. My final nominee is from the Bank of England, because we've all been sitting very happily watching as the economy goes absolutely down the drain before our very eyes, waiting for the next bill to come in, which we won't be able to afford to pay. Rishi Sunak, don't worry, is offering us all 12 quid off your council tax a month, if that helps you, if you happen to be living in an A, B, C or D band house. It's not going to go very far. And then if you really can still hang on until October, he's going to give you a loan for a couple of £100, by which time we'll all be destitute, probably living on the streets, because everything's going up in price by so much. So the Bank of England, in their wisdom, decided to put interest rates up a little bit. But Andrew Bailey, who's the governor of the Bank of England, also recommended that we shouldn't be asking for a pay rise because that would be bad for inflation and very bad for the economy, which would be all right if he wasn't being paid practically £600,000 a year, £575,000 a year he makes. No doubt he probably has a few expenses lobbed on the top for his occasional trips to the Ned for dinner and or lunch. And I mean, you wonder where these people get off. They're so out of touch with ordinary people. I mean, most ordinary people probably won't earn that kind of money in their entire life.
The thing that's, really annoying about this is the Bank of England and the Treasury will have been completely cognizant of the fact that we've been quantitative easing the hell out of the COVID situation for 2 years. After printing all of that money and basically shutting down the economy, what was going to happen? Well, we're going to have to inflate our way out of this.
Because producing money without actually making anything is always bad, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So, inflation was always, to call it a risk would be an understatement, a certainty. And so to say that people shouldn't ask for pay rises and these loans, not loans, gifts, what is it? The reduction on the council tax. It's robbing Peter to pay Peter.
Well, it's giving you some money back that you've already given them, which is actually already your money.
By the way, I mean, given that every family, the average family's bills over the next 6 months are going to go up by nearly £3,000, their annual bills. Energy alone is going to go up to £700. Rishi Sunak, his big rescue package.
That's on the low side, by the way.
But that's the energy. It's 3,000 altogether.
No, but 700 is on the low side.
So Rishi Sunak's rescue package for cash-strapped families is £350.
Right.
Do you see a problem?
It's
not really covering it, is it?
And not only that, but by the time the loan comes in October, we'll have had 2 more price rises from the fuel companies. And also, in April, they're putting up national insurance by 1.25%.
Gesture politics.
So
Gesture
taking more money off you, offering you 12 quid back. I mean, it doesn't work.
Looks good, but it won't.
It doesn't look good, though. I don't think it even looks
good.
good.
Well, he thought it would look good. It's gesture politics.
Well, he got that wrong.
The one thing I would say about Andrew Bailey is that I mean, what he's saying might be good for the economy, don't you think?
No, because I mean,
that people don't get big pay rises.
No, well, nobody gets a big pay rise. Any people get big pay rises.
But them asking for it
is
for a pay potentially rise. Damaging to the economy.
No, it's not. Because what's potentially damaging to the economy is running it into the ground by shutting it down and paying people not to work.
We can't afford to give people big pay rises.
No, they've already screwed the economy. It's too late for that. The economy is already done. Yeah, but you might as well carry on and just keep spending your way out.
But he's talking financial economic sense when he says you shouldn't get
but he's
big
tone
pay
deaf,
rises.
He's tone deaf.
Yeah, but because he earns a lot of money.
Yeah.
So he's not allowed to spend. Well, he's the governor of the Bank of England.
Because he earns a lot of money, he's got no business.
What do you expect him to get? 20 quid a week?
Well, yeah, probably. He's not doing a very good job, is he?
It's just like because he earns a lot of money. Well, no, he's not allowed to say anything.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying his advice to people who are much less well off than he is, that they shouldn't get any more money, is disingenuous, frankly, and it's insulting.
They shouldn't
it's
get
insulting.
He said they shouldn't get big pay rises.
Well, nobody gets big pay rises anymore.
Well, he said they shouldn't ask for big pay rises.
Well, of course you should. I mean, asking for something is how you get somewhere, right? Are you going to tell me that you've never asked for a pay rise in your life?
Well, no, it's not. What's that got to do with it?
Well, because if you don't ask, you don't get, do you?
Well, I know, but
it's not none of his business.
He is saying something that he thinks is good for the economy.
Yeah, well, he's talking absolute cobblers.
I have to agree with Mike. He's got no right to tell people that they should or shouldn't ask for a pay rise. It should be none of his business. But every month...
What he's telling you, he's just advising. He's the governor of the Bank of England.
No, what he should do is tell companies...
OK, little serfs, don't ask for more money. At this time of inflation we're going into, don't ask for more money so that your real wages and your standard of living go down. Every month that we were paying furlough, quantitative easing, shutting down the economy, was a month that we were contributing towards redistributing wealth upwards, huge upward shift in wealth, and inflation, and would inevitably lead to a reduction in public services and the standard of living. So I'm really angry about this.
But we've got to stop this because we're going to run out of time and I'm going to get into trouble. But I think at the end of the day, if he wants to advise people, he should be advising companies not to give pay rises as opposed to telling people not to ask for them, which is a different thing altogether. And I would accept that. And I'm sure you'll see the sense of that. Now, we have to wrap it up. We have to wrap it up. So, Kevin, why don't you tell Laura your 3? You pick your favourite one of his, and we shall go from there.
OK, my 3 were Julian Smith for his inaccurate description of Boris's slur, Jimmy Savile slur, as a lie. Fake news. My second one was Bristol University for the cat gender students.
Yes.
And what lecturers should address them as. And the third one was the cat kicker, Kurt Zouma.
It's going to have to be Kurt Zouma.
Although
the other cat story is a close second.
The other one's good, yeah. So now you tell me your 3.
OK, so my 3 is the Environmental Modelling Group for putting on paper that they want young people to have vaccine passports to go to festivals, so they will get vaccinated for something that they acknowledge will do very little to halt transmission at festivals. Yes. Madness and coercive. My second nomination is Ben and Jerry's for ruining ice cream by lecturing us about geopolitics.
Yes.
And my third is John Cleese for telling us it's good manners to wear a mask when it's nothing to do with manners at all.
They're all equally good.
And for being a huge disappointment.
Yes. I think I'm going to go with Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah,
I think Ben and Jerry's is the best one there, isn't it? Now, my 3, Tandy Newton. We've got GoFundMe. And your favourite, Kevin, Andrew Bailey, the most disingenuous Bank of England governor ever.
I'm going to go for lack of gravity, Tandy Newton.
Tandy Newton's brilliant, yeah. So, all right, so now the final 3, Tandy Newton.
Well, hang on, I think Andrew Bailey.
No, yeah, but you don't get to choose. You just get to choose his. So it kind of goes around in
I see.
In an organic sort of way.
I did this last time I was on.
I think you did.
You did. You think you get the rules before too long.
All the women who appear on this all want to win.
They want to be in on everything.
They just want to be on